Thanks for sitting with us, John. It's a real pleasure.
It's my pleasure. You know, the only thing I really ever have to talk about, although I talk about a lot of things, and as I said, I ramble a lot, but the only thing I really have to talk about is this simple mental act that I speak of. And since it is so simple, and since it requires no particular understanding or insight or belief structure or anything whatsoever to perform it, to actually accomplish it, I have begun to, whenever I speak to anyone, whether in an interview or in a meeting or whatever, the first thing I want to do is for us to do this simple act. Just you and me and whoever ends up viewing this, to do this simple act so that my conversation with you as we proceed with the interview will be in the context of this act rather than whatever context might spontaneously arise.
Okay.
I call the act looking at yourself. And that pretty much is what it does, what it is. It's a mental act, it's an act of the concentration of consciousness, trying to get a direct, immediate, split-second taste of what it actually feels like to be you. Not self, not consciousness, not ego, not any of those things, but just you. Now, it is certainly the case that we all, growing up human beings, excuse me, it's certainly the case that we have all been mistaken in many different ways about just what it is that we refer to when we say me. We've mistaken ourselves for our thoughts, our body, our consciousness. We've mistaken ourselves for a whole bunch of things over time when we think about what I talk about when I say me. But although we've made those mistakes doesn't change the fact that there is present here in this moment a sense that I am here, a sense of me here. That sense of me here is almost never consciously touched. In fact, it is, for a lot of reasons that we may or may not talk about, avoided, pretty much like the plague. So what I ask people to do is to, and there's no particular technique to this, it's too simple to really lend itself to a technique. All I'm asking is that we bring the beam of our attention in direct contact with the actual feeling sensation of me, just me. And usually the way we start is by, even though we know these things to be the case already, by reminding ourselves of the fact that the most important thing in this entire act is the actuality that we do have the power to focus attention and to place it where we want to put it. That is, to me, it's indisputable. So usually I start, and we don't have to go through a big rigmarole here, but usually I start with us just sitting here quietly and entering into a very brief mindfulness meditation. And what I mean when I speak of mindfulness meditation is that we with our eyes open or our eyes closed, we bring our attention deliberately, by choice, to the feel of the breath as it comes in and out of the body. And we try to count the breaths as we're watching them. Now, it is to be expected, and it is actually trivial to note, that it's easy to lose that intent, that attention is naturally drawn away to things that move and make noise and things of that nature. And that's okay, because the purpose of the meditation itself is not to succeed, but simply to notice that I actually can do that. So let's just sit for just a minute or two and see if we could count our breaths, watch our breaths. When the tension is pulled away, we just note when we notice that we're not attending to that, we just notice that we're not attending to it and bring our attention back to the breath and start over.
Okay.
So let's just do that for just a couple minutes. I'll pay attention. Okay. Now, of course, when we do this, it takes some effort. It takes some intent to focus attention. It takes some time to notice what it is we're actually trying to look at, what it feels like, and then some time to actually settle into the paying attention to it. And if we're distracted from it, we go through the similar process again, reestablishing that contact. Now the same is true for what I want to do now, which is just for a very brief time, 30 seconds maybe, see if we can find the direct experience of what your tongue feels like as it rests in your mouth, relaxed, just that. Again, it took a moment to understand what we're looking at, and then a little bit of time to settle into it and so forth. But in both cases, we had the capacity to do so. We could choose to put our attention there, on the tongue or on the breath, wherever we wanted to, once we figured out what it was that we were actually trying to experience.